Hello and welcome back to Wall Tactics. We're here with another Fix My List. Now, if you don't know how we do Fix My List around here, we do it every month. It's for channel members and Patreon members. You send me your list with some detailed description of the units you want to keep. That way I don't remove the foundation of your list. I don't care if it's fun, memeish. I don't care. We're still going to keep it. You tell me the kind of models you own. That way I don't suggest something you do not own. And then the terrain setup and style of event you'll be attending, whether it's teams, singles, if it's WTC, if it's UKTC, if it's GW, whatever it is. And then just it is one-on-one sending me your list. So usually I'll be talking to the person that I'm fixing the list of before I even do the stream. I'll be conversing with them about why they like the units they like and what they're willing to lose. So it's pretty much one-on-one list building with me before the stream even starts. And then usually I send the list beforehand to make sure the person semi-approves of it. And then we get into the details and the niches. That way I can now share it with you, kind of like I regurgitate the information and also the questions that are asked. That way this is more like a two-way thing here. We're building it together, right? So, of course, so if you haven't done this, of course, check me out. DM me or send it in the Discord or on Facebook. Either way, I will get to you. I will find you and I will answer your message. Now, some gets around here, like my get right here, Ken Asylum. Whoa, he did qualify for Fix My List. He did send me an awesome list, but I actually thought his list was just mighty fine. And I will tell you that if you send it to me. So if your list is mighty fine, I don't feel the need to change it. I won't suggest changes just for the sake of it, unless you really want me to. So there's also that. You can even get some list critiquing. So don't be shy. Go ahead and send me your fix your list and let's get stuck in, lads. But of course, before we do that, I got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice, for their high quality dice that they allow us to do our paint competition and allow the wall to keep growing. So thank you to the Baron of Dice, and check out our paint competition and check out Baron of Dice in the description for 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. Of course, check out our tokens that are for orders. That way, when you pray your Tactics Brigade, you can get cunning and you can keep organization when you giving them tactics out. You gets. So we move on to the first get we're going to cover. So today we're covering a Bully Boys list and a Tactical Brigade list. Shout out to you. America says, how many wagons should I run? 3 of them, all of them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So we'll talk here in a second. Remember, this is live, so send me any questions, concern. If you don't like the list or you wonder why I bring some things, you go ahead and ask. Blue might have asked me himself, and I might forget to bring it up. But here we are with Blue's original Bully Boys list. So Blue Mick gave me some context that he's actually attending his first RTT, which I think Bully Boys is a great idea if you're attending your first RTT, man. That was a really smart idea because time management can be an issue, right? So Bully Boys helps you mitigate that. And the fact that WAAAGH is a one-turn ability means that having access to 2 of them isn't so punishing in Bully Boys. You also get to play with some fundamental fun units like Gaz, Mega Knobs, makes you feel kind of mighty and strong. So let's go over Bull Blue's list real quick. He has a Beast Boss on Squigosaur. He has Big Mech and Mega Armor, Gazgul, Thraka, Mazrog, Scragbag, War Boss, and then a War Boss and Mega Armor with Teleporter. 2 trucks, 2 Grot units, 3 3-man units of Mega Knobs. They each had combi weapons and power claws. Then he had a big 10-man unit of knobs with power claws, with 2 4-man units of Squighog Boys, and then 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. Now, what he told me was, I want to keep Mazrog on my list, and I want to keep Gaz, really. So he's asking for, I need to keep my big bricks, right? And that can be a complicated thing because these are quite expensive units. You don't want to get too saturated on characters necessarily, and you don't want to just have 2 big missiles necessarily on your list. Yet he has other squigs and things. What I do like about this list is that it does have a nice core of what we like to call a pain wall, where everything on this list that you're trying to keep alive has a feel no pain. Besides the knobs, I guess, for in this case, is for the most part, though, you have squigs and you have mega knobs. These are all going to have access to feel no pains and invuln throughout the game. I do like that he took a Big Mech and Mega Armor instead of just sticking to all war bosses. So with that being said, I did give some suggested changes that he ended up, what I understand from, liking for the most part. So let's just go on to his changes and how I'll explain this. Another thing I would say is, I do like the War Boss and Mega Armor on his list with the teleporter, because I think a lot of Orc players do not utilize reserves, uh, deep strike, stuff like that in an offensive manner. For the most part, people just want to put Storm Boys in reserves. Now, here is the suggested change that I came up with, because I actually do like this Bully Boy list, because in my heart, I love Mazrog, I love Squigs, and I love using stuff like Mega Knobs and Gas. So if this was a league, or a store league, or a pickup casual games of beer and pretzel with friends, I have the list that I'm going to show. I very much like for the suggested list. And here we have Blue's suggested changes on his list. Now, if you're looking on the screen, suggested in red is the suggested changes to his list. Now, and I see some people in chat saying, should I have should I have 3 battle wagons? I don't know. I think 1 or 2 is fine. Even 1 is fine to the most part. And the Big Mech and Mega Armor at 4 up invuln. Yeah, I do like that. I would switch to Power Claws to Kill Saws. We'll talk about that. So right here, I actually decided to change and make some changes, and I'll go through them, and I'll suggest why I said them and how I explained them to my boy Blue, and we were going our back and forth as to the suggested changes and why. So we have 2 Big Macs and Mega Armor this time instead of simply 1. Gaz Gulthraka, and then Mazrog Scrackbag. He said he wanted to keep Maz, he wanted to keep Gaz. We're keeping Maz and Gaz no matter what. Now, the one minor contention here that I'll just be open with is the War Boss. I thought about dropping the War Boss because the point cost does get quite deep here in points. It does get, I think, around 660, or I have to pull it up again if I still have it. But it gets a little deep in points. But there's a reason I decided to keep the War Boss. So then we have 2 trucks. That's majority of time going to be the Big Mac and Mega Armors, possibly the Breaker Boys with the War Boss, though. Then we have only 1 Grot unit, another contentious point that we can go through as we talk through this list. A commando unit, something that some people don't like, but Blue said that he's fine with commandos. Therefore, I was fine suggesting commandos. I have several videos on why I suggest commandos, but right now in the meta, and there's just some certain matchups, especially you go to an RTT, whether people just move block you or jail block you with garbage units that could just stand in the way of a bunch of your trucks, or big slow units, which aren't necessarily fun. To just be countered by that. You have the 8-bound kind of Angron style rushing list, or Gene Stealer brushing list, throwing dev wounds into you. We don't really necessarily want these armies to kind of just stand on our face and hold us back and have us dig us out of a trench. Therefore, commandos can help you with that, or on certain missions like let's say any search and destroy deployments where you have to occupy a corner of the table. Commandos really help you with that. So I think in this kind of army where you want momentum, you want table space, commandos allow you to play that 1 extra phase early, so you can do that. Now, we upped those Mega Knob bricks. No way I'm looking to simply take 3-man units. Now, do I think a War Boss and Mega Armor and 3 Mega Knobs is bad? By no means do I think it's actually terrible. I think it's okay as an ingress unit, but we're upping it on this list. We're going all the way. If you're playing Bully, I like to go all the way into the meat, right? We're getting thick on here. So I brought 2 5-man units of Mega Knobs for those Big Mechs and Mega Armor. They do have Power Claws and custom shooters. Now, we did that because the Big Mech does allow them to shoot and re-roll hit rolls of 1. Then you get some devil and chips off. And you do kind of appreciate having more attacks. Now, you could say I want to keep Kill Saws because you get more AP and you get more strength. But Kill Saws simply lack the volume, and you already have the ability to be stuck in combat with these Mega Knobs and Big Mech and Mega Armor. These are actually a bit more cunning units to be used, as a lot of the time you're going to be fishtailing one of them out, or simply putting one in objective while the rest is hidden within the terrain to draw out the enemy if they have to get firepower or stage up closer to you. That way, when you WAAAGH, they're kind of more in firing distance. You could even use one of these Big Mech and Mega Armor with to put one Mega Knob in the center of the table on the deployment zone. In the center of the table objective marker, and that allows the enemy to simply shoot at him, but then you can pull him and regen him back out there in the command phase. and it does bait them to kind of get closer to you. In that case, now you have gas to respond as well. So having the full brick does bring the full potential out of the Big Mega armor, and the power claws retain the volume of attacks. Then you have Gaz's big brick. Now, you do have the ability to drop one of these mega knobs. If you want to do creates a profile, if you want some points, if you want 35 points, and then you drop one of these Stormboy units coming up, you can bring, 2 more minimum size units of Grots. You could bring Flash Gate units. You could bring just more chaff. But in this case, I wanted to bring the entire brick for Gaz, but each to their own, depending on what terrain you have. If you're looking at something like this, a 5-man unit works totally fine. Then we have a simple Squig Hog Boy unit to go with Mazrock. Now, on his original list, he had a War Boss and Mega Armor with the Teleporter. That is his Rapid Ingress unit. In this list, his new Rapid Ingress unit is the Squig Hog Boys with Mazrock Scrag Bag. The Squigs are simply too expensive, and so is Maz himself, to just be out there walking around hoping to make it to terrain pieces. And there's already other units and trucks and stuff like that already trying to do that, as well as Maz. Therefore, the commandos are actually creating space for the Squig Hog Boys. If you're playing, let's see, I have it right here. Sorry, guys, I was going to bring this up a little earlier. Boop. Sorry, you're like, what am I trying to bring up? I'm trying to bring up other GW deployment zones. So we have her. Let me get this. Actually, I was trying to have this up already. Boom. So let's say you have GW's deployment zones here, and you're trying to let's say play mission, what's a pretty much common one? Mission 4, table layouts 4, table layout 2. Table layout 2 is pretty nice. So let's say you're trying to play table layout 2, and this is pretty common. You already have that center terrain piece for Gas staged up. Where's Maz and the Squig Hog Boy is going to do if you run up this side deployment, the bottom of the terrain zone, deployment zone here that you can see that's being shown to you, there's a good chance enemy can draw a line of sight to you. If it's too early, they can chip you down. You don't necessarily want that. Commandos can actually stage up into that terrain zone at the I was trying to work on a marker here, guys. My marker's not showing up right now. At the bottom of the screen, you could stage up in there with the commandos turn 1, and that allows for your Squig Hog Boys to end up occupying that space with the Rapid Ingress turn 2, further up the field than simply having to hope to walk out instead of staging up, in that little pocket between the 24/9 lines that you see there. So being able to utilize a Rapid Ingress and having the commandos be able to occupy that space is very important. So check out the commando video if you haven't done that. And shout out to Blue that he said he's down to using commandos. Then last but certainly not least, we have 3 Stormboy units. The reason I have 3 Stormboy units on this list, which Blue asked me as well, why 3 instead of 2? Good question. Your list is already quite elite. Everything out here is looking to just walk up, getting stuck in fights, look for a wall, try to attempt charges. The Stormboys are going to work like this. You're going to have one that goes into deep strike for your secondary purposes and to keep the enemy honest in their own deployment zone. That way they can't full commit to you forward. You don't actually want the enemy to do that. You want them to respect your Squigs and to respect your Stormboys. That way they kind of spread themselves more thin. 2, your second Stormboy unit is going to be staged somewhere near the middle so that they can do early game secondaries that require you to stand into the middle really quickly. Let's say you have an area denial and deploy Locust. Boom, you want to get those points really badly. You need a unit to get there immediately and reliably. That's where the Stormboys are, where they can stage up and deploy in a safe spot. Like if you were to play, layout 1, for example, they can sit in that deployment, in that terrain in your objectives in your home deployment zone, and then simply move out 12 inches to be able to do an area denial. So you want 3 of them, because then the third one can act as a late game scoring unit, late game objective flipper. It can actually act as a pushing unit during your WAAAGH, during one of your WAAAGHs, where it runs up with the rest of your army and helps throw a grenade possibly into somebody as everybody else is advancing, so they won't be eligible for grenades. And a lot of the time as a bully boys army, you have a lot of grenades that you have at your potential. And then certainly last but not least, we have the Breaker Boys. Now, why did I add the Breaker Boys in the War Boss? You might think, well, it's a new data sheet, Wall Tactics. It's awesome. It crumps. And you're right. End of story. No, I was kidding. The real reason is what I mentioned earlier with the Big Mech and Mega Armor and the Mega Knobs, is for the fact that they don't really punch that hard. Now, can you kill some Space Marines and such, some junk? Yeah, for sure. But there are 3 wound models, greater demons, certain vehicles that won't respect their combat. It might charge onto objectives with them, something like a Vindicator, where it will shoot them and then charge them and hope that it kills enough of them between tank shock and shooting that it can flip the objective, because Mega Knobs and Big Mech have low OC. That's where something like a Breaker Boy unit can actually act as a counter charge and more of that killing potential, because on this list your real killing potential is Gaz. Of course, Maz and the Squig Hog Boys can bring certain damage, but they're actually more used for killing kind of skirmish units, killing big bricks of T3 models, killing units that are susceptible to their low AP. Breaker Boys are looking to gain respect from other units on the battlefield, like greater demons, for example, that are popular in the meta right now, where if the war boss is within range of Gaz's lethal aura, he can really pop off and really put some damage on alongside the Breaker Boys into these greater demons. So you could argue for dropping Breaker Boys and a War Boss, but when I suggested this to Blue, that's my suggestion after how I read the meta right now. There are quite damaging units out there. There are quite durable units out there that can also commit damage that you have to be able to damage as yourself as an orc player and have the respect from. Is there argument for knobs? Yes, there was actually 5 knobs on the list at one point, and then you were left with weird point cost at that point. Then you can move up to 10 knobs, and that's totally fine as well, but it doesn't really solve your problem for high toughness armies, where Breaker Boys, if you put enough bomb squigs into them, between the bomb squigs and the Breaker Boys and Squig Hog Boys, and maybe you get a grenade off, you can actually chip someone else down enough where you can have the Breaker Boys smash through something that's quite durable in the end. So this was my suggested change for Blue. He did approve. We did speak about it, so I actually enjoyed making your list enough, Blue, that I would actually consider running this for sure myself. And I might be running it in some casual games sometime soon. So thank you to Blue for submitting your list and hitting me up. Hopefully you are the first of many. And then we move on. So we move on to someone that I appreciate, Mr. John Anto, the big boss. So he's actually been on the channel before as a live stream we did when he went to Adepticon. So he's very popular, and he's quite I think he has a pretty good ranking from what I remember in the ITC for his orc ranking, and he's known in the Midwest for being quite active and known as an orc player. So all love to this get, and I was glad that and happy that he was actually willing to have me do fix his list, because this gets out there getting stuck in all the time. So this is actually for a teams event as well. And it just so happened that John and I have similar preferences to certain degrees. Now, is he a little more wild than me? Yeah, my boy's a little more wild than me, but the big boss is an OG, so I expect nothing less. Them original orc players, they're a little madmen, right? Like Mark Perry. Let me see some of these chats real quick before I get into my get right here. We have War for Jank the Tank. Let's go. Yeah, I got to see you out there at your shop, my boy. So our moderator ended up getting a job at a store. So shout out to you, homie. That's going to be awesome. Who knew the Bad Moon could throw some punches? Yeah, Bad Moons could throw punches. They still orcs. They still greenskins, man. You get speaking of, if you guys haven't read or heard the book Katachan Devil, I know it sounds like a guardsman book, and from a certain degree it's from a guardsman perspective, but it has a really good sub story from an orc perspective, and one's an orc commando, and they interact with some death skulls and some they get into confrontation. So you can see that even the death skulls throw some punches. Bad Moons can definitely throw some punches too, even though they throw DACA, because even guys that like all the shiny gubbins like to get stuck in, lads. So here we have the original the big boss's original list. If you guys got anything to say about this and questions, of course, get stuck in there as well. So for his list, he's going to the teams. He said he's looking for damage. But the big boss has been running mobs of boys since Index Hammer. So I know he has a predilection for this. He really likes it. And he likes tagging multiple units, putting a lot of pressure on the enemies. I believe his Adepticon list ran 20-man units of mobs of boys too. Therefore, I feel comfortable suggesting them and keeping them on the list. And I'm glad that he has them on the list too. So he has a beast boss. He has a Big Mech and Mega Armor as Mech Captain, as the Warlord. Triple Big Mechs with shock attack guns, a Pain Boy, and a War Boss. Now, the Pain Boy has Mork's Cunning, and the War Boss has God Boomer. Of course, Mork's Cunning, as far as we understand, GW still hasn't answered, is that Mork's Cunning does not work if you are within a transport, because no abilities in all of 40k work if your unit is embarked in a transport. So that's how we understand it. If your TO allows you, go ahead and do it. And then we have Zagrot Wartsnaga, one of the most contentious units that I always either advise or get told not to advise. It's fun to talk about. Then we have, tell me how you feel about Zod. Then we have his battle line. So we have a 10-man unit of Beast Snagga Boys, a 20-man unit of Boys, with just the Rockets. Everybody else is Choppers and Sluggers. And then three 5-man units of Storm Boys. Simply 2 trucks, a 10-man unit of Flash Kits, a 22 size unit of Grots, a minimum size unit of Grots, and then Commandos with all the gubbins. So he is what I suggest. He had, actually, I think he had just basic Choppers and Sluggers. I don't know. I wrote all the gubbins. I think I erased it on Excellent. And then he has triple Tank Busters. So he said his idea is that he's going for all damage from the Tank Busters, and then he has mobs of boys to kind of hold stuff back. Funny enough, I was running some games with something very similar. What I mean very similar is I had 20-man unit of boys with beast bosses with triple tank busters on my list in the flash kit. So it was very, very similar. So what I like about this list is obviously the triple tank busters. Now the tank busters bring so much versatility into the meta as a whole, guys. This is something you need to understand. If you don't have them and you're frustrated because you don't have them, they might not be as good when you get them later in the meta. And it's not because their data sheet isn't good later. It's because right now, as of how the game is being played right now, they do a great job into elite infantry and the armor units that are being presented to us. So it's really just a job and the role they serve right now. And the fact that the Tactics Brigade allows them to shoot infantry is a huge deal. So he does want to keep them, and because he's going to teams, we'll have him keep them. I like that. Now, that's a no-brainer. What I really love here is the 20-man unit of boys. I think 20-man units of boys are kind of slept on in the Tactics Brigade, as a lot of the time we're looking just for straight damage. A lot of the time when people talk about this list or discuss what they want to do with this list, they're just talking about destroying people, because being cunning just takes more time and more effort when really you could just table people, right? But I know my big boss here loves to do all the shenanigans and table people. So the 20-man unit of boys is awesome because amazing, crazy OC once it does get stuck in. The fact that the 20-man unit can actually fall back, shoot and charge means the enemy has to deal with it when it's time to deal with it. And giving them stealth and cover at all times does help with the fact that they are susceptible to getting shot. The issue is a lot of armies do get rerolls to hit, so stealth does start to feel a little bit Another thing I really like on this list is the Beast Snagga Boys. A lot of the time, people are simply just going ahead and looking for knobs, looking for Breaker Boys. If you don't have Breaker Boys, I promise you a Beast Boss with the unit, a Beast Snagga Boy unit feels excellent right now in the meta as a whole. You're tired of the new data sheets? Go ahead and stick to some Beast Bosses and Beast Snagga Boys. They still do a great job in this detachment. One thing is they do not rely on the wall to get the job done. They do rely on sustain in that case, but having access to sustain is a big deal. So having Beast Snagga Boys is awesome. I love them in this detachment. I bring them all the time. They're a cheap alternative to Breaker Boys. Even though they don't hit all the same targets, they hit the ideal targets almost as well, almost. 3 Storm Boys, because like we spoke about before, you're using 1 for late game a lot of the time, maybe even 2. You're losing 1 for deep strike, or you're throwing 1 back into deep strike, and you're using 1 for that early game turn 1 scoring, like an area now, deploy locust, etc. Zagrot Wartsnaga. Now, in this detachment, he doesn't have the reactive move, but Giving Grots 3 OC when they're in combat is nothing short of obnoxious on that tiny base. Now, this has the same detail as the boy unit, that they're going to fall back, shoot, and charge if they do not get dealt with. So the fact that you bring two mobs in tandem and have them both go when it's go time is the real power behind this list. The fact that the enemy goes, I can't really choose to just ignore one mob and clear this mob on the wall and then go back to that one. Because if I do, that unit is going to flip my primary the following turn. They're going to take my home objective the following turn. That's something that Zagrot Wartsnaga is absolutely excellent at doing. Having Zod charge something, get stuck in the fight, lose 15 models, and then the remaining models fall back onto an enemy objective, or they simply stay where they're at and then they pop more OC, and it gets crazy. You could end up just nailing people at turn 2 or 3 when you call the wall, not from killing them, but from checkmating them based off the fact that you're going to start flipping their primary. It's amazing. On something like the ritual, Zod feels great. Because you can just go and take the enemy's home instead of having to worry about keeping your own objectives. So I get what he's doing behind this list. Therefore, when I had to approach it, I had to really consider, what do I want to do here? Because the commandos even themselves help, so you could take table space for Zod. So what are we really going to do and suggest here without really destroying his list? So here are the suggested changes. So in this list, we have a beast boss, big mech, mega armor, but simply 2 big mechs and mega with Shakatekan. We have a war boss and with big gob, and we have a weird boy instead of a pain boy. And then we have Zagrot Wartsnaga. We still have the same exact battle line setup of 10 Snagas, 20 boys, and then 3 5-man units of Storm Boys. We have 2 trucks. That's still fine. 10-man unit flash kits, and then right here I have one. I accidentally fat typo fingered it. This should have 2 5-man units of flash kits, followed by a 20-man unit of grots. It should be 22, obviously, and then the 2 11-man units of grots where I have fat fingered this, followed by commandos, and then 2 tank buster units. Now, let me explain these changes before you guys think I'm a madman. One thing I should say is I already liked the big bosses list, but there were some contentions I had. One of those contentions I had was, how are you crossing the distance with the pain boy and the pain boy and the war boss? I do not trust those guys to simply walk. Check out this right now on screen. I have deployment zone layout 1 being shown. If you already have Zod on the list, where are you really sticking this boy unit where an enemy can't simply just take line of fire and shoot down into your almost deployment zone that isn't just simply hiding in a terrain? Now, if you're hiding one of those terrain features, even then you don't have great spots to simply walk out. Don't really love it. Layout 2 is a little bit more favorable if you take them down that right side of the lane, but then again, you are subject to being kind of nailed on the way up the field. So how do you really counter this? Because most layouts are going to work that way from what I've seen. A lot of the time when people bring a pain boy, they end up bringing a battle wagon, but I really wasn't trying to bring a battle wagon and changing, what you can actually fit on this list, because then you start running out of assets. It is an option, but not the option I wanted to take. So what I wanted to do here was leave the weird boy and the war boss in a position where the war boss can still throw out his gob boomer to commandos, to flash kit units, whatever he may, Thornboy units, whatever it may be, Zagrot Wartsnaga. And the weird boy allow him to reposition where he needs to be. Now, there can be some funny interactions, some cool interactions, where the weird boy could be given +1 to hit to his headbanger ability and shoot like a master of executions and blow his head up with precision and damage 5. Can totally happen. Don't rely on it, but it can totally happen. It is another fun thing you can get off here. But it was really about the fact that like I said on this layout 1, for example, if you're going to stage up Zod in this bottom kind of half box terrain feature, and you're going to have the boys in that top L shape, well, the boys can actually stage up there, jump into that middle terrain piece behind the commandos, and occupy that space as Zod moves up from that half box square piece up to the enemy side of the table. So that's where I favor the weird boy for positioning advantages. Then we have the 2 5-man units of flash gets advised. I advise that because I wanted more activations and more units that can interact with the enemy as they close the distance, or if they're trying to just throw little 5-man units around, little 3-man units around to do scoring for them. Or to bait you early game, I'd really like for a 5-man flashgate unit to be given orders from, like I said, the war boss with God Boomer for +1 to hit or +1 strength and reroll charges, and allow him to get out there and start kind of fighting early and early, or kind of controlling the space around the truck that is full of tank busters. You don't really want a tank buster truck playing the flank with nothing else inside of it with it that can actually come out and kind of playing that SWAT team potential. Now, could these be converted to burner boys? Absolutely. I do appreciate flash kits because they allow you to shoot at 24 inches like the tank busters, so they can assist in, lethaling something if they have to. Let's say you shoot at a soul grinder, a demon, something with a 3-up armor save like a transport, and it doesn't necessarily die. Flash kits can help pop lethal and maybe get off more damage on that, or they can act as like a countercharge unit, kind of interrupting fighting on the flanks of the table without really exposing your commandos. So I appreciated the SWAT team aspect of this. And then I did end up adding one more unit of grots. Like I said, if you take these flash kits and you drop them down to burner boys, and then you end up taking the grots and bump them up to basic boys or some other variation of units, you can as well. We do have the commandos left on the list, and then the 2 units of tank busters. Now, what I will say is this list still plays very much like his original list that we showed before. The difference is we can occupy space better with the weird boy and kind of make up that space, and we can kind of play the bit of a longer game by having a little bit more units for activating and getting into these skirmish fights. Uh, on the other and on the other hand, what I didn't love about running triple tank busters myself is you end up, and this mob unit list, is that you really end up hoping all of your damage comes from the tank busters. Otherwise, your mobs of boyz and Zod are just kind of left out hanging to fight on their own, and kind of hold all that space early with the beast boss. So in that case, I liked having more units, more stuff. One, so I can control my assets and my scoring, but 2, so I can continue to kind of fail forward while clearing the space that's on my side of the field. So when I say fail forward, it means if my damage doesn't really come out, I still have units that are going forward on the wall, advancing and charging, killing small units or getting into combat with other units, flipping primary, and taking table space from the enemy, taking options away from the enemy, taking away activations from the enemy. If you can get into combat with enemies that don't want to be in combat, they can't do secondaries with you now. So having just more units felt more favorable to me. When I ran this I'm telling you, very similar style to this list, guys. Very similar to what I'm showing you right now and his original list. The boyz and Zod get on the verge of, oops, they might not survive long enough, which means if the enemy clears them a little too early, all you have are a couple tank busters and trucks holding the rest of the table. So in that case, you end up running out of stuff to kill their small scoring units. If they run around with the 5-man unit of infiltrators, if they run around with the 5-man unit of reavers, if they run around with whatever it may be, a 3-man unit of nurglings, you have nothing to activate into an attack with it if everything is all damage of 3 tank busters, a boy unit, flashgate unit, and then a beast snagger boy unit. You just ran out of activation. So in the big boss's suggested changes, I simply added a couple more units because it's supposed to be 2 flash kits, not just 1 on there, and grots because I just wanted even more units to do stuff. If you choose to downgrade some of those for even more, you can. If you choose you really need the 3 tank busters for your damage, that's totally fine as well. I totally understand it because some people just straight to go for straight damage, and this is a team's event. So with that being said, this was my suggested list for the big boss. He said he liked it and he approved of it. That he doesn't know if he has the last 5-man flash kits painted and available right now, though, but he still liked the list and he's still going to work with it. So that's what we have for his version of Fix My List. So let's see what the chat has to say real quick. Let me see what my gits got to say. Dexter Grotz with some real Morky thinking, dropping 1 CP for a Crystal C is brutally beautifully brutal. You're having a hard time reading that. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Speaking of Grotz, guys, my last couple games, man, I'm like 1 CP for the last 8 turns. It's crazy. My enemies have been laughing at me and like, what's happening with your Grotz? I got to run her to them up, you guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the middle of painting 40 Gretchen. Brutal. Yeah, that is quite brutal. You know what I did as a lazy git when I was a newbie with that rodeo? Was I based them like a dark color, and then I left most of their clothes the primed color, and then I just painted their weaponry, some of their bandanas, and then their skin. So they were battle ready, but I didn't have to go in there and get like their pants necessarily, or their I don't think they wear shoes, or like their belts, weird stuff like that. I just do like the belt buckle, for example. Now, some of my grouts I overpainted, mind you. Some of my grouts I did overpaint. I remember being very proud of painting 10 grots, and it took me a long time. And then I realized no one ever noticed ever. So it's really up to you. I say just get a little battle ready and you're good to go. So any last comments in here, questions, concern? Let me get some. Whoa, what's up, Aaron? Yeah, get stuck in there and watch it. So, like I said, guys, with this Fix My List, this is every month. So let's get momentum on this. Don't be shy. Don't be nervous. This is never to talk anyone down. If it's a league game, if it's a beginner game, if it's intermediate, whatever it is, you get out here, you motivate other gets just like yourself. We get stuck in and start pressing some ideas. And with that being said, if you have any other video ideas you'd like to see, any more tactics you'd like to get involved, don't be afraid to leave them out in the comments. Don't be afraid to reach out. And of course, check out our tokens, our paint competitions. And there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we knock your teeth out.